Who were you before you lost your wild self?
That's what we're helping you explore on the Tend Her Wild podcast.
Through questions and tools around how best to listen to your inner voice,
rewild ourselves, and live the most authentic life where we thrive instead of survive.
I'm Betsy.
And I'm Kate.
And we're so glad you've joined us for this episode. Hello, Tend Her Wild podcast listeners. We're here today with a special guest that I met many months ago, or maybe years ago at this point, at a retreat in Spain. She and I became deeply connected, and we're thrilled to have this conversation with her today. Jaime Ehrenberg. She's an intuitive embodiment and spiritual guide trained as a priestess, Reiki, and embodiment coach. Her work bridges somatic awareness, intuitive guidance, and energetic attunement. She creates sacred space where the body, mind, and spirit can come into coherence. Jaime has over 25 years of experience in group leadership and transformational spaces. She weaves structure and intuition into every container she holds. She has a master's degree in education and an undergraduate degree in environmental education, grounding her spiritual work in a foundation of facilitation, pedagogy, and deep reverence for the natural world. So great to have you here, friend. Thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. With Jaime, I'm so excited to get to know you better. Betsy had talked to me about, her experience in Spain and getting to know you. And so before we get into your current roles and endeavors, can you tell us a little bit about your first 10 years and how and where you grew up and what those first years, any momentous experiences, things that may have kind of shaped you as a child?
That's quickly a deep question.
Yes, it is. We're diving right in.
I grew up in Chicago, in the Chicago area, and by the time I was 3, my parents had separated and my mom had left and was gone for a while. And so that was definitely quite the impactful beginning of my super formative years. And I will say she's in my life. We're a good relationship and all of that now, but definitely, when you think back about that inner child, and, I've done layers and layers of healing, and it's still there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I would say in this, it was also my time. So my dad raised us. So as a single father working full time, which was so different back in the 80s. It was, especially he was a construction worker, just not your usual setup. And I also appreciate so much of that really greatly because having a man play some of those roles, I have this confidence that I just feel very supported and able to try to do what I want, and not so timid about things, in which we all have our mindset and other hang up things that we bring to the table with everything. But for the most part, I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can try. And I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
And then after these first 10 years being raised by a father, you had one sibling, is that correct?
One full sibling, a brother. Yeah. Just a year and a half younger than me. And then I have 2 half sisters.
Okay, great. Then you started to move. I know you tell us about sort of your school into college, and then you went into the corporate world for a while. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I think about following my intuition, which I know there's so much of this podcast that is really focused on that and us hearing ourselves and then following that, I went to college at just a traditional local university and was double majoring and going off into some direction that after freshman year, my my soul was like, nope, no, we can't do this anymore. Like, I don't, you know who you are. Like, why are you doing political science and English as your double major? And so I dropped out after my freshman year and I went to a community college and found my new college, which supported that environmental education degree that I received. And coming out of college, I knew, despite the fact that I had a degree that was really connected with nature and people were really going to like work in national parks or county parks. I'm like, I want to come back to the city to connect people to nature where they live and where there's such a big population, that we get much more easily disconnected from that. And especially young people who aren't realizing that trees and the birds are all part of nature, even if they're not these big, wide landscapes. So that's what the beginning of my career looked like. And I worked for government, I worked for a high school, I worked for a nonprofit and several nonprofits. And every time it was, is this right? Is this right? This isn't right. And then I hit the time. I'm still trying to figure out if it was just the soul aligned time or perimenopause, because I feel like those things kind of walk hand in hand.
I think they do often. Yes.
But even though I had been doing something so fulfilling and helping transform schoolyards into green spaces, that was the last thing that I did, so that there were like parks and kids all over the country were able to have those nature experiences in their day to day. All of a sudden it was like, this is just not right anymore. And I had to make another transition.
Yeah. That resonates very much with me, and having kind of had a similar path where I tried lots of things in the corporate world or very structured settings, thinking, well, maybe this one will be better. Not realizing really it was me. I was not in the right space. But what was your final, or kind of what was the final push? Did you have kind of a whisper or a calling that you were ready to move on to something? And what did that look like for you? How did you eventually kind of, I don't want to say jump, but it feels almost like a jump that you made?
Yeah, there are two jumps. The first one was my first marriage.
Okay.
And then the second one was my first career. And both of them, honestly, I feel like were so embodied. My body was letting me know, that by the visceral experiences I was having, despite the fact that, I didn't, even for this second career, I was just a handful of years away from retirement, because my husband is retiring this year, my second husband. And I'm like, oh, okay. I like actually don't have to work anymore. But I knew that really wasn't it for me either. And so it would have been so much easier, so much more convenient to just finish up those handful of years and be done, and then just ride off into retirement. And here we are, starting a whole new career, trying to be an entrepreneur and support women in their soul-led path in all different ways, connecting to their intuition, land, and each other. But the switch really was the embodied knowing of my brain just not feeling sharp anymore, my body being so tired, it not feeling joyful and resonant, like all sorts of layers of the soma, like really getting activated or deactivated rather. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you always in touch with your intuition, like young, or was that something that came in later life?
I was aware in my teenage years that yes, I was in touch with my intuition. And like so many of us, there's so many pieces of our lives where we get married and have kids and have a house and all sorts of things that just layer and layer and layer on top of our knowing. And so it was that unlayering that really got me so closely connected back to my intuition.
And I got to experience your intuition firsthand. So you and I both arrive in Ibiza, Spain for, I think, what was called a priestess training. It was like a 5 day full on throw you into the deep end of the pool experience. I didn't know anyone. I don't know if did you know anyone
Mm-mm.
before we got there? And it was intense. Like I remember walking into the first workshop and being like, I'm in the wrong place. What did I sign up for? She was definitely helping us rewild on
Yes.
every level.
Yeah.
And I ended up in a group with you. I think it was maybe the second breakout that we did. And we were doing this deep, energetic, intuitive healing work. And all I remember, Jamie, is I didn't know anything about you. I didn't know that you lived in Illinois and you didn't know I lived in Iowa. We were, just very short distance from each other because there were people from all over Europe, all over the US at this thing. And all I remember is looking at you after this experience and being like, she is this old native soul. I could just, your capacity to read and feel and just hold such grounded space blew me away. And so was it that week where you really started to tap into how intuitive and what a healer you were, or did you have inklings of it prior?
So I did have inklings of it before that. However, um, and you and I have been in regular communication since then, and so you've kind of gotten waves of this. But I now realize, because as many things go, there is an ever unfolding path of you say yes to something and you keep learning more. When we were in Spain together, my husband and I had about 18 months previously stepped on our land in Tennessee for the first time. And both of us knew right away that that land was for us. We were just literally browsing of trying to figure out where we would live when he retired, and did not anticipate finding our land that we were going to be stewarding that early, like literally the first day we were looking. And I've now been getting more information from the land itself of like, this is part of what we've been doing. We've been calling you in. We've been calling you to step more into this role as a priestess, as a temple keeper, but like deepening into that person you saw in Spain. And I just understand it now. Like it's been only a few months now of really like, oh no, we've been calling you. And if you wouldn't have stepped on this land, you wouldn't have gone to that priestess training and you wouldn't have really unlocked more of this part of yourself. And so it's been wild and I know that this is so much of this podcast of like all these things that we say yes to or no to, and what path they lead us down and who they reveal us to be, and more back to ourselves.
So I love that so much. So it was in Spain that almost there was like an initiation for you to remember that you are sort of this steward of land, and that's how you intuitively hear things and know things is via or through the land. And so it's something unlocked there. And then these last 18 months since that retreat have only deepened your understanding of being sort of an intuitive through the land, and that you are the steward of this particular bit of land in Tennessee that we're going to get into here in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I love knowing that.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you are now, and I've been following you for a bit, but I would love for you to explain to our listeners, because we haven't really talked about land and the connection to nature that is, like you have been doing. And can you kind of talk about, like, when you say because you're looking at different pieces of land and you step on this, what did that feel like? What was it about that particular land? And then I'd love to hear more about the name and kind of how that evolved for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have almost 80 acres that we steward. And when you look at larger parcels like that, you're walking around and you're hiking because you're trying to get a good sense of it. And you're not necessarily seeing everything, but trying to move around however you can. We had no infrastructure on the property except for some old timber trails, and that we used those to walk around. And we were with our real estate agents who were walking with us. And we were all walking at different paces through the property, but I mean, when I have an absolute like intuitive knowing of yes for me, my eyes get teary. I just am like, oh, this is in such alignment, and that is what happened. My heart really felt expanded, and yeah, I just felt so open, and was like, wow, this is it. This is it. I couldn't hear the land at that time. It was a little while until after that I could do that. But we hiked up to the top of the hill where our tiny house is right now, but where the temple will also be, the temple space up on top of the hill. And we both just looked at each other, and he was saying the same thing. He's a knower in terms of his intuition. And he was like, this is it. This is it. I don't want to even go look at anything else. Let's just go home. I don't know. We weren't planning on buying something right now. So let's go figure out the finances. But this is it. I don't want to lose this property. And yeah, it was pretty magical. And my husband, Christian, had always wanted to retire on land. And that was one of the things, to be honest, that I loved about him at the beginning, is that there was a plan post-retirement, to keep his vitality and his inspiration and his passion, which we know that there's so much research that's important, really important for all of us to keep living healthy. Yeah. And he had always wanted to call this land Idylwild. So that is where the name came from. And the company's name is Idylwild Retreats. Yeah. Those 80 acres in southern middle Tennessee, and it's the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So we're very rocky, but just hilly, not yet mountainous property.
Okay. So you're both going there, and I know you've been there many, many times since you bought the property. You now have a tiny house. You camped for a while on this property. But I also know there was a moment when you started to really hear the land, almost as if it was directly speaking to you and it had messages. Can you tell us about that time, how that awoke in you, what it felt like, and then what are the messages coming from this land?
So one of our priestess sisters from that retreat actually helped train me on how to clear the land. When she heard that we wanted to have some kind of sacred gatherings, and I didn't know what those would be yet, but that we would have those on the property, she was just like, probably want to clear that because you just don't know what energy's on there. We do have a cemetery on the property too that is technically not ours, but yet we're the stewards. All of the gravestones are 1976 is the most recent. We have even unmarked graves there and young children's graves. And so between that and who had owned the property before us and how they acquired the property and what they had done to the property, the energetic clearing felt really important. And so, Amalia did a training for me because she was like, I can do it for you. I'm like, no, I have a feeling I'm going to have to do this more than once. I need you to help me learn how to do it. And it was really after I connected with the spirit of the land and she told me what she needed. And this will not be a surprise to anybody listening to this podcast either, that she was actually like, it's the toxic masculine that I need help clearing out because I can't do it by myself. Wow. The previous owner had his girlfriend buy the property, and then he just went down to the county and switched it into his name. And so, and they separated, and he was left with the property. And even before then, there was a lot of mining for the Civil War. There were iron mines, and part of the property was used, which is probably most of the people that are buried in that cemetery, that they were casualties around then. But just a lot of extraction and for human use. And yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, I did not expect that kind of a message. Like, we need to clear out this. I cannot get this all out by myself. Wow. Yeah. And after that, that's when I started, the land felt different. And then the messages started coming in.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
It blows my mind because, of course, we think about clearing houses, saging
Mm-hmm.
houses. There can be
Mm-hmm.
spirits that are living in houses, but I don't know if I've ever really considered that also big swaths of land can also, of course, hold energy and hold trauma and hold negativity. So
Mm-hmm.
this idea of clearing the land and hearing her say, I can't do it on my own, it makes me
Yeah.
wonder how many parts of Mother Earth she's trying to clear old toxic energy and she just can't do it on her own. Can you share at all, like some of you don't have
Yeah.
to share the whole ritual that you did, but like how
Mm-hmm.
do you start to clear out some of this old energy?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is having permission, to be honest, and not, deciding you're going to go to somebody else's land and try to do that. I was told if you're renting or you own it, that's permission enough. And hopefully everybody who co-owns with you is in agreement and there's not some strain or tension there. But yeah, it is very much like a house, but you can do it. It's actually easier to do it remotely, and that's what I did because it's such a big piece of property, and it's
Mm,
really marking the boundaries. And what I ended up doing, because we were also trying to make sure that any spirits were going up to the light, there was candle ceremony and like long burning and notification that everybody's going to the light. Gotta
mm,
clear
Yeah.
out. And then eventually sending anybody that was still left there, any remnants to the light. And I can say that there never felt like there was that kind of a density, but you never know. And so that was the intention. But that the clearing of those energies, it was really like almost meditating on and connecting with the land itself and just hearing what she had to say and be like, okay, all right, we're going to clear this out. Yeah.
I saw recently that you have been drumming on the land and
Hmm.
connecting with it that way.
Yeah.
So post clearing, what else are you doing in advance of kind of building this temple? What else are you doing to kind of, I guess, commune with it and kind of get it ready for what it's to be?
Yeah. And I think even back to Betsy's first question of like, what messages are you getting? The first message I actually received was just look at everything. And every time you look at a leaf or a tree or a plant or an animal, you're exchanging energy. And I was like, oh, I mean, and that's true anytime. But I was like, that's so simple. And so I think for any of us trying to connect more and support land, that feels like something super easy to do. And it's beautiful for us too, because it requires a little bit of slowdown and presence and intention. But she honestly also was calling me to drum. And so when I got a message last spring too, it's like, it's time for you to get a drum. I'm like, okay. All right. And one of the women that I hold a full moon circle with, she started holding drum circles. And so I'm like, okay, we're a step closer. And then
Mhm.
she co-hosted a drum making ceremony. And so then I made my drum. And then I got the message, come drum on the land. Like you need to come drum on the land. And that while that drumming was happening, that was when I got the message like, yeah, you've been in this role taking care of land like this, helping people connect to source, spirit, God, for so long in this role and so many lifetimes, and now you're just remembering who you've been. But the drumming was key to that, Kate. It was really interesting. It was like while I was drumming and I was just walking around drumming, and it just was like flooding in those
Wow.
messages.
Oh, that's
And
so
so the
cool.
preparation's been that, and creating a couple of sacred circles with materials from the land. We have geodes and rocks that are specific to the property, and even just turtle shells that I found, which is now the first spirit of the land that I have added back in is the turtle team.
mm.
So they're all kind of weaving in their energy, but also like physically grounding near enough where the temple space will go.
Jamie, I'm totally blown away by, as a young woman, you knew you wanted to study environmentalism. You were interested in that. And then this whole journey, trusting it, listening. Okay, I got to quit this corporate job. I'm going to go on this priestess retreat, hearing all these messages for it finally to sort of be unlocked in you, this old key of like, yeah, this is what you're meant to do. This is your bigger purpose. And you've done this many, many lifetimes already. And here you are doing it again. It's just so beautiful, I think. And I think speaks to all of us that for all of us, we have a particular path. And so to hear your story is really inspiring. And that at any stage of life, we could come upon that.
Yeah.
So what do you think this means? Do you think you're just meant to be the steward of this particular piece of land? What, as you're continuing to step into maybe what I might call this dharmic path and your purpose, what's lighting up for you?
Supporting people on this land specifically is a big pull. So, and back to your question, Kate, that is also part of the preparation that's happening. I've had 2 retreats and have another retreat coming up in a couple of months where we're meeting on the land, and the energy that people feel, like it is like really palpable. But one of the things that she said to me, the land, was that she was there. She was like, I need you to bring people to the land so I can help alchemize and transform them in whatever's needed for them personally. And I'm like, okay, no, no big deal. But it's meeting everybody where they're at each time. But everybody who's come so far has been in these like inflection points, and it makes a lot of sense of like just helping move them in whatever way they're meant to in the future. But that is our plan, is to continue to have retreats and have a little bit more of a public space there too, where people can come and walk trails. And my husband wants to build like sit spots and things where he just feels like the energy is really good so people can connect and slow down. But you asking me about that, Betsy, I've been really, but nobody's taken me up on it yet, really interested in like all of us as women, if we even have a little piece of property.
I was just thinking that.
Like
Me
what we
too.
can do, just like helping and unlock a little bit of that energy, and then what that ripples out into around the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, so powerful. In talking about bringing people there to connect to nature and your vision with your husband too, it reminds me of your early decision to go into the city and try to bring nature to people. And now you're bringing people you're creating a space to bring people too, but really with the same idea that humanity needs that connection right now to heal.
Yeah. And I'm also just really struck by, and I'd love to hear more about this idea of we each have a little piece of land that we're living on. And clearly Mother Earth has been hurting for so long. And she's been showing us that with droughts and fires and earthquakes. And she's trying to get rebalanced. And it's almost like even up until this conversation, I was believing like, well, she's really powerful. She'll figure out how to rebalance, and we might have to become extinct for her to get rebalanced. But what I'm hearing from you is like, well, what if we co-create with her? What if we actually help? How could we all actually heal this planet by working with our backyard, literally? So it's really inspiring. And do you have certain steps like for our listeners? We go out in our backyard today. What are some simple things we could do to honor and really help heal this land?
Well, I do think that just that intentional connection and just like looking and exchanging that energy, she has said that really matters more than whether it's hugging a tree or, just taking care of a garden in your backyard. She's like, it really matters. And I think that there's a piece of it too, of us speaking it. That was one of the last messages I received. We just returned from a retreat, the winter retreat last weekend, and she said, "Speak about me more." Like, people, this is drawing people, speak about me more. And I think the connection to land, just like connection to drums, is really ancient. Like, we've been doing this. So, like,
Yeah.
obviously we lived on the land, right, for so long. And so being like, we know this inside of our bodies of like how to connect with whatever that property is and care for it. And I think even just paying attention to what it seems like it needs in that moment and using our own intuition to provide that will go a long way.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
And it does feel like you've taken something that I like, to Betsy's point, she can't do it alone, and that we all have a part to play. And sometimes, so taking some agency where we can right now feels good to
Yeah.
know that maybe there's something I can do.
Yeah, it's so curious because I feel the same way where I was like, oh yeah, she's fine. Like, she will outlive us. She'll be okay. And but there was something about that. It wasn't even speeding up, but it's like, even with us, it's like when you practice your intuition or practice anything, you're like dusting off layers of yourself to like come more to your true self or your soul self, your divine self. And it just allowed that to happen so much more quickly and let her be what she is, and like to her fullest capacity. Yeah, yeah. And it's like, so when we're on the land, we're connecting to her a lot. And I mean, it's just so like, she is rising right now too, no matter what. But I think if we are participants or co-creators, it really just shifts things, and not only our relationship with her, but the potential for the new world we all want to create.
Yeah. And tell me about that, because Kate and I talk a lot on this podcast about this feminine rising, and we're talking about it more in like human form, right? We can feel it rising in ourselves. We can feel this new energy coming forward. But again, of course, the planet we often think of as feminine, she's rising. So you being, I would say, a nature intuitive, what does that mean that the earth is rising, that feminine energy is rising?
So when I feel into what that looks like when I'm guiding practices or meditations, it's like this ancient energy of like the center of the earth that's like ready to just come back up, that has been suppressed. And yeah, I mean, there are so many parallels, of course, with our human experience. But it's there, and it's just like, it's time, you know. I feel like on some level, she was probably just like, all right, some of this is going to pass, and then it's going to be time for the collective shift to happen. And that's when I'll put my energy, really bring it back up instead of trying to constantly fight and push it. And now there's like an opening. And we're, even when we're just doing our human things and not land relating things, it's all weaving together, all of that energetics. But when that energy is deep, like in the earth, kind of deep, that's wanting to come up. It's not just on the surface.
Yeah.
The parallels with humans, especially women, right? There's something deep in us we know we're meant to do and meant to be, just like Mother Earth is like, it's like liberating her as we liberate ourselves, honestly.
Yeah. I also know that you're really, Jaime, you have a deep understanding of astrology too, and we're on this major new cusp. I mean, they talk about almost as if there is this new earth that's happening from an astrological standpoint. Do you think that's also aligned with this feminine rising? And what's your take on where we're headed in the next bit?
Yeah, I definitely do. Even our winter retreat was all around the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that we just had. So I believe that we are in this beautiful window, like we're in it right now, where if we have enough space in our lives, we are able to get the messages of the role we're supposed to be individually playing to create this new world. And we know that the structures, the systems, all the things, like we've outgrown them. They
Yeah.
do not work anymore. And it's probably not going to be the most comfortable thing in all the shifting, but the more aware and that we are, that like we need to do something different, and change is often uncomfortable, all the transitions. But the astrology, with so many of the outer planets shifting and all of this air and fire energy, and at the 0 point of the whole zodiac, like what we are experiencing right now, I feel like this new world is being built now, and it's very much because it's Aries. It's not focused on what everyone else can do to help create the new world. It is, what am I doing to help create the new world? And that sounds massive and daunting, but it doesn't have to actually be. It can be, I'm going to move around the world as more love, and how differently things react to us and we perceive the world by being more love.
Yeah. I heard recently that we're entering an era of self-leadership.
Yeah.
So how we've also looked externally for that we have to start leading from our own hearts in whatever way we can.
And I love your point of we each have to, this is a time for us to turn in and figure out what does it look like for me? How am I going to be a part of the peacekeeping and the solution? And I mean, Jaime, what I hear from you is you're working with the land, you're listening to the land, you're honoring and clearing land. And so I love this idea of right now, can we go in, get quiet, create some space to get more clear on what's my individual contribution? Which I think also lines up very much with what we talk about on this podcast. We're here to kind of take care of and heal ourselves, which then does actually heal the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think it is much more about being rather than doing too.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that love
So
example.
vibration, like our vibration and sort of the energy we're carrying.
Yeah. Yeah. And how we want to show up to shift what we're experiencing as a collective. In I guess even just parse that out a little bit more, of it doesn't necessarily have to be I'm doing XYZ and this plan and this trajectory, but this is who I am. Like, I am an intuitive. I am a temple keeper. Like, just even something so grand as that. I'm a mother. I am a wife. I am, a walker of the land. All these things that they're a piece of who we are, but if we more take it as like, I am this, or I can be this, rather than I'm doing XYZ and this is how I work in the world.
Yeah.
Moving from the doing to the being is part of moving to the feminine rising too, right? That's the essence of being feminine, or feminine energy.
All right. So if people want to come on retreat with you, tell us about that and how they find you and what's coming next.
So the retreats are seasonal. It is hot in Tennessee in the summer. So we do winter and spring and fall retreats. And so we have a spring retreat coming up, which will actually be over Beltane. So the May Day, it'll be sweet, I think, us emerging out of the winter slumber and being able to be on the land and expanding into who we are walking into and what path we're taking for whatever is being developed right now. It is an easy retreat. People want space to just slow down. And so we don't have all day planned events. And for this particular type of retreat with the land, it is meant to be like, okay, can you just sit down and be with it? We do embodiment and then different guided practices and talk about whatever astrology is happening, but doing it all in community, in circle, and doing daily hikes that are nice and easy, but allowing us to slow down and really just unplug. And they're just being up without anybody else asking you to make them coffee or make them breakfast or get in the car is a beautiful gift to ourselves. It's really a returning to ourselves and letting the land hold us and slow down at the same time.
Retreat is such a beautiful way to reconnect to yourself. And it sounds like your path on retreat has really, I think you said in your writing, catapulted you forward. So providing that experience for others is a way to fast track, kind of not fast track, but be able to concentrate on that part of yourself that maybe you're out of touch with.
Yeah.
And it seems that the earth is healing the participants who come and walk on it and sit on it. Likewise, you helped heal the earth by clearing it. So again, it feels like a very like give and take relationship. It's not, one way. And to me, that also feels like the feminine rising, that it is a collectivist sort of experience versus I'm going to take from you and you need to give me this. So I think that is really powerful.
Yeah, and they're pretty small retreats too. So the community gets built up pretty quickly too, of everybody in the same way, like bringing their gifts of sitting and having their tarot cards out in the morning, and anyone who wants to pull a card around the breakfast table, being able to do that. And not that we can't do that in other places, by all means we can, but it's really beautiful of how people bring their individual selves fully and share it in these retreats.
Well, we will leave all of your contact information in the show notes, and certainly check out, is it Idylwild
Retreats, Tennessee?
Yep. Well, we always like to wrap with a special question that really feels so in line with your life's work, and that is from the Women Who Run with the Wolves. And Clarissa Pinkola Estes says that there are 4 doors in which women walk into their lives as a wild woman. So which door do you think most resonates with you? If you have an old story, that is a door. If you have a deep scar, that is a door. If you love the sky and the water so much you can almost not bear it, that is a door. And if you yearn for a deeper life, a full life, a sane life, that is the door. Is there one that you really feel like you're leaning toward, one or more?
Oh, that's the first 3 all resonated a lot. Yeah. And just where I am right now and about to go on a pilgrimage to some of my ancestral lands in Romania. Like, I feel like the old door is calling me the most right now.
That will be another portal into the wild woman archetype for you.
Yeah, I feel like another unlocking. You went to Spain and it unlocked something. You're going to Romania, it's going to unlock something. So I'm just really excited to see where this continues to take you and how you just continue to evolve as this beautiful soul in the world, sharing your magic. You really are. So grateful to know you, Jaime.
Yeah. Thank you both for having me on today. And for everyone listening, your land is
connect.
Calling you to. Yeah.
Such a good reminder.
Yes. Thank you, Jaime.
Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us today. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Come back and rewild with us again next week.